Hey guys, it's me Ubprogrammer, and from today I'm gonna start a series on Git and GitHub. I'll try to keep it short and just cover the main topics which you will be using as a programmer in your career. And let's talk about the introduction and why we need it, and what are these versions which we talk about in Git, and how we can use them in a practical scenario, right? So let me just open a whiteboard, a blackboard, right? And I'll just give you a practical example so that you can just be clear about it. Okay, so uh, let me think of an example first. Okay, so we have to build a calculator, okay, and we are using Python uh, programming for sorry, this is not I right. So this is our project calculator. We have to build that using Python, right? And as you know, calculator have many functions, so we just want four or three of them: add, uh, subtract, then multiply, and then divide. So we want this simple project to be developed. And without Git, how we will do that is making a you can say app.py or whatever your file name is, right? So this is a .py file, and let's call it add.py, and I'll just write my code for the add functionality, right? Or if I just give it a symbol, and then I will just modify it and just do the subtract, then multiply, and then divide, and I will create my project without Git, right? But uh, let's say I have completed my add functionality, and now I want to work on the subtract functionality, right, in my project. But I am afraid that when I will be using or integrating this subtract functionality in my project, maybe somehow it will give us errors, and even the add functionality will not work. So this is the case where we want to back up our file. This add functionality is working perfectly till now, right? But when we are writing code for the subtract, maybe it will just collapse or give us error, right? Even the add functionality will not work sometimes, right? So we want to save this add.py. So without Git, I'll just create a backup of this zip file or whatever, right? I will just create a backup, and this backup is actually called version, right? So you can say I will save v1, and same for all of these. So v1, v2, v3, v4, and then v4 will be my final version of the project. But with this Git, I'll just say whenever I want to save this or making a backup of it, I'll just commit it in the Git. And commit command, what it will do is make this exactly v1 for me, so I don't have to manually make a backup and keep that on my hard drive. It will just track the change and track the file content of the file and make a v1 for me, and then I'll just do the minus thing, and then it will make the v2. And now let's say I have some errors when I was integrating this multiplication functionality in my project. I get some errors, right? So what I can do is just undo this thing. So v3 or this commit will be undo, and I'll get my state back of v2, which is same as opening your backup folder for the version 2 and checking that in a separate window of VS Code or whatever IDE you are using. You can just revert back to v2 from your git bash, right? So these are the you can say scenarios where you really want to use Git to keep the track of the changes of your projects. So that's why it's called, let me just make room for writing. So it's called VCS, which is version control system. So Git is a version control system, right? And this was the first scenario why we want to use it. And now let's talk about another scenario. Before that, let's talk about the GitHub. So what GitHub is, it is just a platform for hosting your projects, right? So you have a project, many people are working on that, you host it on the GitHub, and then they will just use that repository of your project from the GitHub to do their own working or their job, right? Let's concrete it by an example. So project will be same. I want to create a calculator, but rather than working individually on that project, now I have a team. So let's say I want to integrate as before 4 functionality in my projects. So I have 4 developers for these functionality. So one is expert for the add functionality, one is the expert for the subtract, and you can just relate it to any other complex example, of course, right? But for now we are just keeping things simple. And so you can say dev1 is integrating plus and so on, right? And dev4 will be doing, so dev is for developer, right? And the division functionality. So that's how my project will be like executing. And I will just store this calc.py or whatever the file name is on the GitHub, right? So I'll just host it on the GitHub, then I will share that link of my this repository with all of my team members. So developer 1, developer 4, developer 3, developer 2 have this link. They'll just clone this repository into their own local machines, and then they will use Git to like developing their project and to push back into the main repository. So when developer 1 and the main thing is I want all of my team members to work on the project at the same time, right? So I don't want that I will just say, hey, developer 1 do the add functionality, and then I will just pass the project to the developer 2, he will do the subtract and so on. I don't want this scenario. That's why I'm using this GitHub and Git simultaneously, right? So we use both of them at the same time, right? So developer 1 is downloading the GitHub repo for this calculator project and doing the functionality of add, and developer 4 is doing the division and so on. And then when they will just be done with their project, they'll just you can say upload back or push, in the GitHub terminology we say push, right? Push back to the original directory or the original GitHub repository, and that's how my project will be completed. So you can say for the remote purposes, or if I have a developer 1 residing in the India and developer 4 residing in the America, so I can just share that link and they can just work both at the same time on the same project, right? So that was it for the uh, GitHub and Git, and I'll just create the demo or practical demos for these concepts in the upcoming videos. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching.